Today I'm going to present my presentation on the topic Union Budget, which was released yesterday.
थोड़ा सा पावर के साथ you have to reach out to the class.
Okay, sir. So hello everyone. Today I am going to present my presentation on the topic Union Budget,
Very
which
good.
was released yesterday by our Finance Minister, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman. So these were the major developments last year. A lot of trade wars have been happening across the global economy, and there were some GST 2.0 cuts which were given by the government. So these are the highlights of the previous budget. I don't want to focus too much on this because new budget has been released. So I will just skip through it very fast. Matlab, in the previous budget, the major highlight was the change in the income tax slabs. So we can see that there was no tax up to 12 lakh of income, and there were also changes in the standard deduction. So last budget was very useful for the middle class as a whole. So it was a very useful budget for a major population of our country. So you can see a new income tax was introduced in the last budget, which benefited many people.
अब इसमें एक चीज आप लोग कॉमर्स वाले हो, लिखा है अप टू 12 लाख नो इनकम टैक्स, तो फिर ये यहाँ पे 5 to 7, 7 to 10 वाले में क्यों दिखाया हुआ है 15%, 10% न्यू टैक्स रिजीम? इट शुड बी जैसे वहां लिखा ना अप टू 2,50,000, इट वाज नील, नाउ इट शुड बी अप टू 12 लाख, इट शुड बी नील। ये कोई गड़बड़ है? मैंने भी जब बजट देख रहा था तो उसमें भी ऐसी कोई कहानी है।
इसमें सर ना एक कैलकुलेशन होती है, हैवंट शोन इट राइट हियर। जब आप स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन को काउंट करते हो तो वो उतना ही बेनिफिट आता है, राइट। तो ये जो 20% है, दिस इज नॉट ऑन 5 लाख, वो मतलब इंक्रीमेंटल कैलकुलेशन है। सो राइट, मतलब हाँ
अच्छा
एग्जैक्टली, मतलब ये 2,50,000 पे 20% विच इज 50,000। तो ये मतलब टोटल जैसे 10 लाख के ऊपर नहीं लग रहा 20%।
हाँ, जैसे अभी लिखा है अप टू 2,50,000 नील
नील,
समझ ये आता है कि अप टू 2,50,000 नील है, तो ये है 12 plus 250 है,
राइट।
250 स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन, और ऊपर वो बोल रहा है 750, सॉरी 75,000
स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन है। हाँ, इसमें जब आपका ये वाली स्लैब आ जाएगी, लाइक 12,70,000 आपका टोटल बन रहा है, तो जब आप कैलकुलेट करोगे तो 75,000 टैक्स आएगा, तो वो सैलरीड पर्सन के लिए स्टैंडर्ड डिडक्शन के थ्रू डिडक्ट हो जाएगा।
नहीं, सो व्हाट आई एम ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड इज दिस।
ओके,
फर्स्ट लाइन अप टू 2,50,000 जो लिखा है, दिस इज 12 लाख के ऊपर, ओवर एंड अबव। ओके,
लाइक अगर आपकी
अबव, तो फिर तो ये एक तरह से 14.5 हो गई, 14.5 हो गई। कह रहे हैं 12 है। इट इज बिट कंफ्यूजिंग। मैंने भी अभी भी बजट वाले में एक न्यूज पे भी देखा था, उसमें भी ऐसा टेबल दिया हुआ था, विच इज नॉट क्लियर। इट शुड हैव बीन अप टू 12 लाख नील, फिर 12 to 15 कितना है, 12 लाख to 15 आगे 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 बनना चाहिए। चलो कोई ना, लेट्स गो अहेड।
राइट। So around October,
Thank you.
GST 2.2 was introduced, and 2 slabs were removed, which were of 12 and 28%, and एक standard 2 slabs introduce हो गई थी 5% और 18% की, and just एक extra 40% की slab थी for some specialized items। तो बिल्कुल ही इसको revolutionize कर दिया गया था, and काफी day to day items को उन्होंने 5% वाली स्लैब में मूव कर दिया था। सो दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि गवर्नमेंट ने ऑलरेडी इनकम टैक्स चेंजेस इंप्लीमेंट कर दिए थे लास्ट ईयर, एंड जीएसटी रैशनलाइजेशन भी कर दी थी। दैट इज व्हाई इन द अपकमिंग बजट नॉट मच वाज एक्सपेक्टेड in terms of income tax cuts and relief for the middle class. So the context had already been set up by the government earlier this year. So these were my expectations for the upcoming budget. Like around 60% of them held true when the budget was released yesterday. So
पहला क्या एक्सपेक्टेशन? फिस्कल कंसोलिडेशन, ठीक है, मेजर,
so this came out,
ठीक है, ये भी सेकंड वाला ठीक है, एक्सपेंडिचर बजट ठीक है,
ये भी
स्ट्रॉन्ग एग्जीक्यूशन द गवर्नमेंट 60%। हाँ, ये इम्पोर्टेंट था चलो ओके द गवर्नमेंट में इंट्रोड्यूस 20,000 रिस्क गारंटी फंड टू बूस्ट
ये
ठीक
नहीं
है
हुआ।
ये नहीं हुआ है नहीं
So yeah, major expectation was no major change, and that came out to be true. Uh, yeah, so that is what I was mentioning कि already दो major चीजें हो चुकी थी last year. Second thing was important कि RBI ने last year 4 बार rate cut करा था. So current repo rate is around 5.25%. So वो भी एक major factor था that already
Very good.
many
to stimulate the growth
much
demand.
liquidity has been infused into the system. And
किसी को कोई डाउट हो तो हाथ खड़ा करके पूछ सकते हैं
you can ask.
दीज आर इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट्स आगे चलें कलेक्शन मैटर ठीक है
RBI dividend is also very important. Like RBI ने last year एक record dividend issue करा था for the government of India, जिसने गवर्नमेंट के रेवेन्यू को काफी ज्यादा बूस्ट दिया था. अराउंड 2 लाख करोड़ का डिविडेंड आरबीआई ने अनाउंस करा था.
ओके नेक्स्ट
एंड so agriculture wise there wasn't too much in the budget as I had expected. Only a few एक AI प्लेटफॉर्म उन्होंने रिलीज करा है to integrate the agriculture practices, and there wasn't much as far as agriculture was concerned in the budget. सर ये मैं इसमें आगे कवर कर दूं?
करो करो चलो आगे चलो 15 जो ली है ना वो ले लो.
So yeah, this is where we start. Actual budget क्या हुआ? So our finance minister started with the budget. This time the budget की जो theme थी, which was युवा शक्ति and 3 कर्तव्य. Last time it was 4 pillars of development. This time, finance minister began the speech. She wanted to focus on the upcoming generation, and these were the 3 कर्तव्यs like she mentioned कि इस पे हमारा बजट रिवॉल्व करेगा. फर्स्ट वाज द इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ, सेकंड वाज इंडियाज प्रोस्पेरिटी, एंड लाइक थर्ड वाज सबका साथ सबका विकास. सो दिस इज जस्ट टू रिमेंबर कि क्या था, नॉट वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट इन माय ओपिनियन. लाइक मेजर ये है कि बजट के अंदर हु आर द मेजर विनर्स एंड लूजर्स. सो द बिगेस्ट सेक्टर व्हिच got the boost from the budget was the EMS sector and the AI sector, in my opinion. So a lot has been done for the EMS sector, manufacturing sector, which I will cover in the upcoming slides. Around 40,000 crore का infusion हुआ है for the promoting the semiconductor sector. Electronics manufacturing, for example, India में companies है जैसे टाटा इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स, केन्स, सीजी पावर. तो वो सारी कंपनीज को गवर्नमेंट प्रमोट कर रही है कि इंडिया को एक सेमीकंडक्टर चिप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग हब बनाए. बिकॉज इंडिया में आज के टाइम में चिप्स की मैन्युफैक्चर होती है, डिजाइनिंग होती है. हमारे इंजीनियर्स बेंगलोर, हैदराबाद में फॉरेन कंपनीज के ऑफिस हैं, दे डिजाइन चिप्स. बट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में इंडिया इज हाईली डिपेंडेंट ऑन ताइवान. 90% ऑफ इंडिया का इंपोर्ट ताइवान पे डिपेंड करता है. तो गवर्नमेंट ट्राई कर रही है. उन्होंने ISM 2.0 एक प्रोग्राम इंट्रोड्यूस करा है इस बजट में. ISM 1.0 5 years पहले इंट्रोड्यूस करा था. तो उसको कंटिन्यू करते हुए दे वांट टू प्रमोट द सेमीकंडक्टर चिप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इन आवर कंट्री. सो इसके लिए 40,000 करोड़ का इन्फ्यूजन हुआ टोटल. सो दिस वाज द, इन माय ओपिनियन, बिगेस्ट पॉइंट इन दिस बजट. एंड सेम गोज फॉर AI डेटा सेंटर्स, उस पर मैं आगे आऊँगा. एज फार एज लूजिंग साइड वॉज कंसर्न, STT सिक्योरिटीज ट्रांजेक्शन टैक्स, which is a tax on when we buy or sell the securities in the derivatives market, उस पे टैक्स इन्होंने 150% बढ़ा दिया. So that is up to some extent good also, because it prevents speculative activity and it prevents losses for the retail traders. But as far as FIIs and bigger arbitrage funds, bigger players in the क्वांट फंड्स जो होते हैं, जैसे जेन स्ट्रीट है, बड़ी बड़ी फंड्स है जो इंडिया में लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूजन करते हैं, जिसे हम FIIs कहते हैं, उनके लिए दिस इज गोइंग टू बी वेरी नेगेटिव. So yeah, capital expenditure. Last budget में 11 lakh crore का capital expenditure था. This has been increased by 10% to 12.23 lakh crores. मेजर जो कैपेक्स का बूस्ट आया है वो डिफेंस में आया है. डिफेंस में लास्ट ईयर 5,20,000 करोड़ का था इन्फ्यूजन, वो ऑलमोस्ट 20% बढ़ के 7,84,000 हो चुका है. So defense was one of the major gainers from this budget, because last year we saw all the operations Sindoor and all those things which happened. So इस साल the government has decided to allocate 20% more budget to the defense. Many government is planning many deals like manufacturing Rafales in India.
सबसे ज्यादा है modernization of the armed forces. That is the biggest target.
Okay.
चलें.
So this is something like, this is a breakdown of where does like government का revenue कहाँ से आता है and उनका expenditure कहाँ से होता है. And इसमें मेजर यही होता है कि मेजर जो गवर्नमेंट का क्या कहते हैं रेवेन्यू आता है, दैट कम्स फ्रॉम द बोरिंग, अराउंड 25% बॉन्ड्स एंड उस सब के थ्रू, बॉन्ड्स एंड डिबेंचर्स के थ्रू उनका मेजर रेवेन्यू आता है.
एक मिनट बैक टैक्स.
दिस इज जस्ट सर
जीएसटी इतना 15%.
जीएसटी 15%.
ओके. अब आप उधर देखो इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स सबसे तगड़ा हुआ कितना 20% है.
20%.
दिस इज अलार्मिंग एंड पेनफुल. आप ये अगर ना देना पड़ता तो हम मैंने फिगर्स भी ली हुई है. इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स आर अराउंड 14 लाख करोड़. लिख लो और ये कहीं बोल देना. अगर कोई बात करता है ना फिस्कल डेफिसिट, डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट, इन सब चीजों का एक ही जवाब होगा. if we increase our fiscal deficit, we will have to borrow more money. We can't say railways will not run, we can't say airports will not run, we can't say this salaries of government employees, defense will not be paid. Government has to make expenditure, government has to run the show. So government will say if whatever the fiscal deficit increases, it has to borrow. और ये देखो अभी क्या इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट्स. एंड हाउ डज गवर्नमेंट सेव्स इटसेल्फ. अब एक तो ये है 60% था लास्ट ईयर फिस्कल कैपेक्स. पिछली बार भी सुनने में 11 पॉइंट समथिंग वेरी गुड लगा, बट टारगेट इंप्लीमेंटेड अराउंड 60%. कुछ उधर बचा, एलोकेटेड वाज सो मच, सम सेव्ड, सो दैट इज हाउ दे सेव देयर फिस्कल डेफिसिट अ बिट. नाउ फिस्कल डेफिसिट कम करने के तरीके, एक तो सबसे पहला आप अपनी इक्विटी सेल कर सकते हो, गवर्नमेंट की इक्विटी. लाइक एयर इंडिया वाज सोल्ड, यू गॉट बिग अमाउंट ऑफ मनी. इफ हाँ डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट, तो प्राइवेटाइजेशन कह लो उसको, डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट कह लो उसको, सबका वो एक तरीका है टू रिड्यूस फिस्कल डेफिसिट. सेकंड इज रिड्यूसिंग योर एक्सपेंडिचर. दैट फॉर ए डेवलपिंग कंट्री शुड नॉट बी द केस. फॉर ए डेवलपिंग कंट्री वी नीड टू स्पेंड, we need to borrow a bit and spend a bit. But the borrowings were earlier very high because our fiscal deficit used to be 10, 9, 11, above 9 for many years. So we used to borrow a lot of money, and then that money, उसके ऊपर अब इंटरेस्ट देखो कंट्री के ऊपर कितना भार है. 12 लाख करोड़, सॉरी 14 लाख करोड़ approximately we are paying every year towards interest for the old loans taken. प्रिंसिपल तो कब करेंगे आप सोचो जरा, कंट्री के ऊपर भार कितना है. years of fiscal mismanagement, higher fiscal deficits resulted in huge borrowings by the country for ensuring development, and because of that we are paying around 14 lakh crore already in interest, which is the biggest chunk of our government expenditure. So if we are going for disinvestment in sectors which government doesn't know how to run them well, like Air India, like some of the equity in government companies where the equity is already for 79%, 85%. Why government should hold? Even if you want to hold it, you hold 51% equity. So disinvestment should be is a positive thing. गवर्नमेंट डिड नॉट नो हाउ टू रन एयर इंडिया इज ए क्लासिक एग्जांपल जहां कहीं डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट के बारे में बात हो जाए गवर्नमेंट वाज pumping in around 5 to 10 8,000 crore every year to keep air india running so what was the gain government has no business to be in business whether it is steel authority whether they are navratna or whatever if your job is to make policies to run the country to make better laws and ensure law and enforcement etc make improvements in the healthcare education वो missed points हैं we will see if he is not able to cover बड़े miss points भी मैंने mention किए हुए the bullet point जो मैंने लगाए थे positive 80% he has covered so government has no business to be in business government is supposed to be in policy making ensuring that policies are implemented हाँ
But sir, कुछ ऐसे में तो सेक्टर है जहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट को जैसे बीएसएनएल है
हाँ
अब हमारी टेलीकम्युनिकेशन बहुत मतलब एक टाइम पे ऐसा आ गया था कि बीपी वाज ऑन द वर्ज ऑफ लूजिंग एंड देन फिर जियो और एयरटेल ही रह जाते तो दे केप्ट बीएसएनएल जस्ट
it is not kept just like that it is kept under pressure of unions it is kept under pressure of opposition and bsnl is not an efficient organization not efficiently run not an efficient organization classic examples of poor management by government are hmt hindustan machine tools wonderful tractor wonderful machine tools making unit now stalled the assets are means getting spoiled every day another classic example is air india and the ones which are making profit also can make 3 times more profit because the way it is being managed they are not being managed very efficiently so railways is one such sector what you can mention bsnl don't mention in railways also for logistics corridors etc logistics transportation some things some wagons some routes are being privatized now sea logistics is such a thing so there are many areas where government should not be there. So if you sell your equity, you save your borrowings, you save on your future interest cost. So direct correlation. चलें.
Building on the like previous points of interest payments, जो डेब्ट टू जीडीपी रेशियो है इंडिया की जीडीपी इज अप्रोक्सीमेटली 3.8 ट्रिलियन डॉलर्स एंड हमारा जो डेब्ट टू जीडीपी रेशियो है इट वाज 55.6 फॉर द प्रीवियस एफआई उसको मार्जिनली गवर्नमेंट ने कम करा एंड सॉरी 56.1 वाज फॉर द प्रीवियस एफआई
अगर कोई पूछ ले आपसे कि व्हाट आर योर व्यूज अबाउट द बजट आम बंदा 80% 90% यही बोलेगा जो अभी आप सुन रहे हो योर व्यू शुड बी स्लाइटली डिफरेंट can't be it can be termed as radical but it's reformist so you should say sir in my view any budget presentation should first start with last budget the progress whatever was the actual situation revised estimate is something separate but whatever was the real target set for last year again each head of getting the money and of spending the money what we did actually should be first discussed on the floor of the house and therefrom the discussion should move to the next budget कितने बजे टाइम होता है यार क्लास का हाँ करमन आप भी बहुत लेट आए जी 2:30 वाज द क्लास टाइम ना कोई है रीजन कि बस ऐवी लतार्जिक नहीं मैं करमन को पूछ रहा हूं कोई है आंसर करमन है जाम था चलो कैरी ऑन
The second point is कि previous budget में the fiscal target was met. It was 4.3 and it actually came out to be 4.3 this time.
So this thing should be debated in the parliament. In the first part, 20-15 minutes of the budget, the finance minister should say how this fiscal deficit target was met. Which ones we spent less and where we got more revenue. It is 90% by cutting on expenditure. These targets are met. 90% of the case. So that is not good. Already we will check. Okay, carry on.
This is something like I have already covered.
Futures and options.
Just to add a little bit of thing, it has a positive impact for the retail investors. They will suffer less losses in the market.
अब ये इसका डायरेक्ट कोरिलेशन है, अगर आपसे पूछ लेता है कहीं किसी मीटिंग में, किसी डिस्कशन में, किसी इंटरव्यू में, why do you think the stock markets crashed after the budget? ये सीधा कोरिलेशन है, 90% अबाउ कोरिलेशन है इसके साथ, डायरेक्टली स्टॉक मार्केट्स को हिट किया था. ऑप्शंस और ये फॉरवर्ड्स है, भले ही स्पेकुलेटिव ट्रेड को कम करोगे, ये करोगे, वो करोगे, बट सेंटिमेंट ऑफ द मार्केट, दोज पीपल हु आर इन्वेस्टिंग इन दीज and directly something negative for the market, it had impact, and that is one of, that could be, ऐसे बोलो आप लोग को एक्सपर्ट तो नहीं, that could be one of the reasons why the markets sentiment went down and the stocks, the index went down.
You can
and plus साथ में global issue, यहाँ पे global ज्ञान चल सकता है, plus there is uncertainty like Iran US conflict can flare up anytime, so it was complexity of both. इंटरनेशनल मार्केट्स भी डाउन है, ये दूसरा फैक्टर है. तो ग्लोबल ज्ञान, बट साथ में विद फैक्ट इंटरनेशनल, इट वाज नॉट जस्ट द इंडियन मार्केट करेक्टेड ऑन दैट डे, द इंटरनेशनल मार्केट्स आल्सो करेक्टेड अ बिट बिकॉज ऑफ द ग्लोबल वार्मिंग scenarios. Carry on.
Like you can also mention that tomorrow there was a 2% correction in both the benchmark indices of our country, Nifty 50 and Sensex. 2% correction when this news came out. It eventually revived few minutes after because there were some positive things in the budget as well. So as I mentioned, the positive impact, but there is also a negative impact of this news. If you look at the NSDL data of the previous few years, there has been a lot of FII selling in the Indian equities market. Like in January itself, there was a selling of 31,000 crore by the FIIs, and for the last year, it was 1.5 lakh crore. So that is also one of the major reasons why Indian markets have been falling from the past 1 year. And this was one of the shortcoming of this budget, that government couldn't provide incentives to the FIIs to come and invest in India. They should have uh, introduced this rule for the retail traders, but for the FIIs, they should have given them some sort of incentive to come and infuse liquidity into the country.
At one point, I had read the data. At that point, it was in 2008 something. 87% of investments in our stock markets, Bombay stock market, was FIIs. And once they pulled their funds out to support their head offices, their banks and their institutions abroad, because there was a crisis in USA, the market started crashing like anything. They were on sell. They consolidated. They needed money, so they sold their holdings. They went abroad. They took the money back, and that is how, in a day, 3-4 circuits used to be there. After 2000 fall, circuit is there. Circuit is put means the market is closed for some hours. Then it restarted again to minus 2000. Again it started minus 2000. In a day, 8,000 fall were there. Market fell from around 24,000, 23,000 level to 8,000 within few days. And the main reason was FII's outflow. So back of the mind रखो figure exactly आज के दिन में कितनी है, I don't know, but a large, ऐसे बोल सकते हो, large chunk of investment in our Indian markets are FIIs, and when they move quickly out, it affects the market.
So they have pulled 95% of the investments out. Right now it is around 450 million, that is
450
million dollars, just 450 million dollars.
in the Indian market. Okay.
So this was one of the major highlights of the budget.
Check if possible as a percentage, if it gets declared somewhere.
They pulled 95% of their investments out, which was fulfilled by the retail investors from India.
In how much time? Last 1 or 2 years?
Maybe last 1 year.
Good data.
Right now it is at our time.
Okay.
But like DIS ने उनको cover करा हुआ है, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this was the major highlight of the budget. This ISM 1.0, it is the Indian semiconductor manufacturing. This scheme was introduced by the government in the 2021-22 budget. So that scheme had an outflow of 76,000 CR for developing the Indian semiconductor industry for the 5 years. And the vision of that scheme was that India starts manufacturing its own chips in the next 5 years. And this budget introduced ISM 2.0, which infused an additional investment of 40,000 crore in this sector. So, like, if we look, our Union Minister of IT and Electronics, Ashwini Vaishnav, like he has told that India will start manufacturing its own semiconductor chips in this year itself. There are four plants in uh, there are four companies which are expected to start manufacturing semiconductor chips. They are Tata Semiconductors, Keynes, CG Power, and another one I can't recall right now. Tata Semiconductors has set up a plant in Dholera, Gujarat, which is the biggest fab setup in India as of now. It is under pilot production right now, so testing is going on there. But at the end of this year, expectation we can expect the chips to start producing. So this was very good in terms of like promoting this sector. And AI and data center, this was the second positive thing about the budget. So, like, if any of you have idea about cloud computing and data centers, uh, cloud computing is basically when we hold our data at some remote location. We store our data at some remote location and we can access it easily. So it saves a lot of memory cost and physical cost for any company. So India is slowly moving towards developing more and more data centers. And one thing in this budget which government has done, they have given zero tax for any company who is using who is providing cloud servicing using data centers in India. There are many companies who are providing cloud services, but the data center is actually situated outside the country. But like if any company which outsources data centers which are located within India, they will get zero tax for the next 21 years. So this was a very positive thing. And this is just another point about 50% cost uh, where data center services are provided from India by a related entity. So this is something I would like to highlight. Major companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, in the previous few years, they are showing a lot of interest by setting up data centers in India. Google is planning to set up a very big data center in Vishakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh. This is something they announced in October last year. And right now, like just for the information, biggest data center is located in Mumbai. So budget government has done a great job in making India AI hub in the next few years. Rare earth minerals. So
This is good. Okay, carry on.
so like
So the government has said that for making chips, the first target where 40,000 crore has been allocated for electronic manufacturing, etc., majorly focusing on chips. Incentives will be also given and some boost to support, subsidy, etc. So for that, the raw material needed is rare earth metals. इसलिए ये नेक्स्ट प्लांट उसके बनाया डेडिकेटेड रेयर अर्थ कॉरिडोर्स. So in Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, and Odisha, so that in a focused way, more rare earth metals and minerals are taken out, purified, preserved, and supplied to these semiconductor making units. So this is a good move. This is, I put a star on it. This is one of the good focus points.
you can also mention like India is in talks with Chile right now. Chile is one of the major producers of copper, which is used in the manufacturing of EV batteries and EV components. So already government is doing a great job in this sector by negotiating with Chile. they are expected to sign an FTA agreement in the coming few weeks, which will increase the import of copper in the country and will benefit this sector. But like India is a country which does lack critical minerals, so efforts have to be made to develop rare earth corridors so that we can become independent on of other countries for manufacturing different things using the rare earth metals, MSMEs. So just like they have announced a fund of 10,000 CR for the MSME industry. Major things for the MSMEs was done in the previous budget, which I have covered in the earlier slides. Not much was done for MSMEs, just a fund of 10,000 CR to promote the MSMEs this budget. Majority of the things had already been done in the last budget. Biopharma. This is also a very good highlight of the budget. Government has decided to promote the pharma sector, especially in the biopharma sphere. Like there are a lot of companies like Biocon, Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, which are working in this sector, and the government has decided to provide a funding of 10,000 over the next 5 years to basically which will be used in the R&D and like skill development and industry collaboration. And like just another point, they will produce a network of 10,000 clinical trial sites, which will just help in drug development, research, and like all those things. But like this is a growing sector, it will benefit us a lot in the upcoming times. Like any questions on this? Okay. So like these are some of the things like what will get cheaper, what will get costlier. Costlier I have already covered the STT thing, and in terms of getting cheaper, most of this is just like brainwash, nothing very significant in my opinion. One thing you can look forward is this critical minerals point. It will capital goods for critical minerals will be exempt of taxes. This is something very important, and like most of the other things like uh, are not very important in my opinion. Overseas tourism packages, right? The government is also trying to promote tourism, so they have all cut the TCS rates from 5 to 20% to a flat 2% in this sector. So it is also budget also has something for the tourism sector. Yeah. So the missed opportunities. The biggest is once again there is not much for the middle class in this budget because I had already mentioned much of the work had been done last year in terms of the income tax cuts and the GST rationalization. So not much was expected from this budget, and it came out like this. A major expectation was, if not STT, there should have been some change in the LTCG and STCG. But like LTCG is around 12.5 right now, STCG is 20%. There was no change in that also. So that was something which the government could have done. Another thing I would like to mention is the borrowings have been above expected. The borrowings have been increased by almost 0.7 trillion, which is a sign of concern because the expectation was 16.5. And once again, this could be a sign of concern because in the upcoming time, if the expenditure of the government keeps on increasing and revenue is not increasing proportionately, it could pull the fiscal deficit on the higher side in the upcoming time. So, okay. Good, sir. Last slide. Majorly, I have covered everything, so like positives and negatives. Just to highlight semiconductors, EMS, and these were the two major sectors which were benefited in this budget. And in terms of negatives, just like there should have been some exemption on LTCG and STCG. Right.
Good. Give him a round of applause. Very good. Thank you. Chalo, ye lo.
Thank you.
Good. Few missed opportunities. Other points he has already covered. What I had put, so I have put tick on the important ones. Missed opportunity में दो चीजें लिख लो. Education. The allocation is just increased by 10% from 1,21,000 crore. The allocation for education is made only 139. Just a 10% increase. The education, if India wants to be Viksit Bharat by 2047, we want to focus on research and development. We want more incubation centers. We want more labs, etc. in all, agriculture universities, engineering colleges, etc., etc. This expenditure should have been, in my view, could have been even doubled. दो एरिया में मिस्ड अपॉर्चुनिटी बड़ी तगड़ी, तीन एरिया में. एक ये हुआ एजुकेशन का, जस्ट 10% इंक्रीज अराउंड फ्रॉम 1,21,000 टू 139. पहला मिस्ड अपॉर्चुनिटी बड़ी. सेकेंडली हेल्थ केयर इन इंडिया. दो आयुष्मान भारत schemes and other state driven schemes are there, but they are majorly taken care by the private hospitals, which are, and they are also, and there is no second line available from government hospital, and they are very much under pressure, very much overcrowded, whether it is PGI, whether it is AIMS, etc. So the allocation increase of just 10% for health is again a very big missed opportunity. Should have also been doubled, because if we want to be a Viksit Bharat, we have to be healthy Bharat. We can't be a country where approximately 40,000 kids die before they complete age of 1 year. Likh lo figure, approximately. In India, approximately 40,000 kids die every year before they complete the age of 1 year. And there are many cases of malnutrition kids. There are many cases of people dying because of diarrhea. Preventable diseases, preventable deaths in India are also very high. Figure I'll give you in the subsequent classes. So to prevent preventable deaths due to lack of health care for cases like diarrhea, vomiting, food poisoning, etc., and to improve the health index of the country, because without which, if the country is not healthy, we can't achieve, Viksit Bharat status. This allocation should have been much increased, much bigger as compared to just a meager 10% increase. तो ये दोनों मिस अपॉर्चुनिटीज हो गई. एक तीसरा, in 1991 agriculture contributed 35% to GDP. In 1991 agriculture contributed 35% to GDP, but today it is just around 18%, almost 50% less contribution to GDP. GDP has grown, but the income contribution in it, the contribution from agriculture has reduced as a percentage. So what does it indicate? The number of people employed are approximately same, around 50 crore. 50% of Indian population, around 70 crore, directly, indirectly, are dependent on agriculture. So ये hard facts हैं. In 1991, 35% of GDP was agriculture. Today it is 18%, almost half. The people employed were 50% of Indian economy, still 50% of Indian economy. अराउंड 50 कर सकते हो, कैलकुलेशन करनी आसान होगी. 140 से सीधा आप ले आए 70 करोड़ अप्रॉक्स, अराउंड कह दिया, अप्रॉक्स कह दिया तो चल जाता है. देन so the number of people employed were 50%, directly indirectly today also 50%. तो उनकी इनकम तो बढ़ी नहीं और पॉपुलेशन भी बढ़ी है, तो more people are, as a percentage, more people have come in. As a percentage, if the percentage is stagnant, then population has increased, the number of people employed are even more, that has increased even more. तो इनकम्स है नहीं, तो उसमें कोई खास concrete plans नहीं थे to improve farmers income. In this budget, there were no concrete plans of how the government aims to improve agriculture incomes or the average income of a farmer, which is around 70 crore public. तो जब उसको आप इग्नोर करके चलोगे तो ये मिस्ड अपॉर्चुनिटी। अब वो पूछेगा 80% चांस है इंटरव्यू, आपसे साथ ही पूछ लेगा। सो स्पेशली अगर एग्री बिजनेस की है या एग्रीकल्चर की इंटरव्यू है तो ही विल डेफिनेटली आस्क यू इमीडिएटली, सो इन योर व्यू व्हाट आर द प्लान्स। तो कहना लिटिल बिट ऑफ एलोकेशंस हैव बीन मेड टू subsidiary sectors like dairy farming, they were not very big. Number one, subsidiary income sources need to be given more impetus, more allocation. Number one. Number two, food processing. Number three, a mention is there, we want to promote crop diversification to high yield giving, high return giving crops, but there is no concrete plan of how cold storages will be made, how many cold storages will be made, how many cold trains will be made, what cold logistics will be implied, how much money to be allocated to this. It needed to be taken up like defense. जिधर उधर गया 4-5 लाख करोड़ 5 कुछ ने दिया ना डिफेंस में 7.8, तो उस तरह का इसमें लगाना चाहिए वार पुटिंग पे काम। धार लेके भी लगाना पड़े तो भी सोचना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज इफ यू डोंट डू इट अगेन वो गैप बढ़ी जाएगा। सो कंक्रीट प्लान्स, नंबर वन, आप स्टार्ट कोल्ड, द गवर्नमेंट टॉक्स ए लॉट दैट इट वांट्स farmers to shift from normal crops, wheat and rice, to high value giving crops per acre, but they need cold storages to back up, as a backup. They need cold chains in terms of cold trains, and then logistics in cold, moving the items by road with containers, with air cons, etc., etc. And it needs support to farmers for going for these. If they fail, the government, center plus state plus insurance company should give them a backup, that okay, you will be given this much. So if these kind of things were planned, they would have had better result. जैसे कोकोनट पे किया कुछ 40,000 करोड़ के करीब कोकोनट पे एलोकेट किया, 40 सम 3 मिलियन और 3 मिलियन 30 many lakh people, कोकोनट पे काफी बात हुआ है इसमें, 30-40 lakh people are employed on that, some million people are employed. So I'm not having the figure right now in front of me, but coconut wale pe they have made some plan that the trees are old, जो हमने बात की थी एक क्लास में कि when you plant a new tree it will take 6 years for it to yield coconuts, but the productivity will be higher. But so how for those 6 years 7 years the government will support the farmer in his earning? So these kind of things have been done only for one crop, one focus commodity, that is coconut. It needs to be done for 100 others.
Also, they have been told that they will designate old horticultural orchards, but again, there is no mention that how many orchards and where they are.
जनरल बात कोकोनट पे थोड़ी फोकस बात हुई है, एलोकेशन भी फोकस है, मुझे फिगर अभी सामने नहीं है, बट दे हैव मेंशन्ड दैट दीस मेनी पीपल आर एम्प्लॉयड इन कोकोनट, एंड कोकोनट productivity is low per area because the trees are old. So if you replace the trees, new trees will come up after 6 to 7 years. So the government is planning to support, to plan something because of which they can shift. So similar thing is done for one commodity, has been talked, has been thought out. Similarly needs to be done for at least top 100 commodities, agriculture commodities, and that is how things will, India will rise up. जहां आप खुद समझ लो, जहां 50% population is directly indirectly employed on a sector whose contribution to GDP has halved. Of course, there is, and just imagine from 91 to today, cost of living would have become 4 times. अब कोई बोलेगा कि चलो जी वो जीडीपी भी तो बढ़ गई, जीडीपी का साइज बढ़ गया तो परसेंटेज में वैल्यू तो बढ़ी, बट आप सही कहो कॉस्ट ऑफ, फिर आपका काउंटर पॉइंट होगा कॉस्ट ऑफ लिविंग भी तो 5 टाइम्स हुई उस बंदे की जो फार्मर है जिसकी इनकम है 15,000 रुपया महीना. तो दैट इज हाउ अंटिल अनलेस दैट 70% that 70 crore population improves, they won't be first time buyers of many commodities etc. तो वो एक बड़ी मिस्ड अपॉर्चुनिटी है. एग्रीकल्चर को बहुत जबरदस्त तरीके से कुछ फोकस करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है, ये 3-4 मिस्ड अपॉर्चुनिटीज हैं. एक छोटा सा पॉइंट है, हॉस्टल्स फॉर गर्ल्स इन एवरी सिटी. दैट्स अ गुड पॉइंट, बट इतना तगड़ा उसका इम्पैक्ट नहीं है, इसलिए आई एम गिविंग दैट. नेक्स्ट हु विल कम? बजट को रोक के फिर नया स्टार्ट करेंगे।